Wherever we are in the world. This is Baseball Outside the Box. Hope you're all doing well, and we have another great show for you. I'm your host, Pete Caliendo, back from the WBSC U18 World Cup, the best players in the world. Team USA winning the gold medal against Japan 2-0, and what a fantastic game that was. I want to thank the WBSC for having me as one of their technical commissioners, and it's been my 27th year. It's been a great honor being able to help with the events all over the world. So, folks, we got a great show for you. Don't forget, I want to thank everybody in the world. We got over 100 countries, coaches all over the world listening to the podcast. We're back. We're going to try to stay as consistent as possible, and we're looking forward to some incredible guests. And we got one. Let me tell you something. This is a topic I've never heard, and I am so excited about this topic. Give you the topic: stay in the game without losing your purpose. This especially for coaches, but also hits players. A special guest, Keith Madison. And let me tell you, I don't have enough time to tell you his background, but I'll give you just a little highlight. With 25 years head coach, University of Kentucky, the Lefty Gomez Award winner, the top award winner for the ABCA. That's the top award of the ABCA. He's also Hall of Famer with the ABCA, former ABCA chairman, board president of the ABCA, and chairman of the board. Incredible. He's the author of Coaching with Purpose, the publisher of an incredible magazine, which you all have to be part of, the ABCA. Join it. He's the publisher of Inside Pitch magazine, especially for people like me who love still reading stuff and seeing pictures. You can also get this on the website at the ABCA if you're a member. But and we've talked about the ABCA, obviously. I don't have to go over all that. The best baseball coaches organization convention in the world. Over 7,000 coaches attend. I mean, it's just incredible. Will change your life as a coach if you attend the convention or see it online or whatever you want. Just follow it, be a member. It's incredible. Without wasting time, let me introduce our guest, Keith Madison. Keith, how you doing, buddy?
I'm great, Pete. How are you?
I'm fantastic. And the one thing I didn't want to mention to the gang that listens around the world, this is incredible. Some of your coaching highlights. 17 players made it to the big leagues, including Brandon Webb, Cy Young Award winner with the Diamondbacks. Swept LSU and ranked number one in the nation. I mean, sweeping the number one in the country. Upon retiring, coaching was third in all-time wins in the SEC behind Ron Polk, Skip Bertman. We just talked about Ron Polk, you and I offline. You coached with him. What a great honor that was. I might as well start with that, and then we'll get into your book and everything else.
Well, it was an honor. And, I signed with the Montreal Expos right out of high school, so I didn't play college baseball. I attended college during the off season. It took me a while to get my degree, but once I got my degree, I started off as a high school coach in Lake Wales, Florida. And then a guy that I coached with had played for Ron Polk when Ron was at Georgia Southern. And he said, hey, my college coach is at Mississippi State now. He's got a great program. He's a great coach, great guy. You know pitching, you know baseball. You should go up there and work with him. And I said, well, how do I do that? So he connected Ron and I, and we met at the ABCA convention in Miami in January of 1977.
Wow.
So from that meeting at the ABCA, we started this relationship. And the following year, I was on his staff as a graduate assistant, earning my master's degree at Mississippi State while coaching with one of the greatest coaches in the history of college baseball.
Amazing.
Pete, this guy he's a baseball encyclopedia. He's tremendously organized. He helped me grow in an area where I was really weak. And that was preparation, organization, details. And so spending that time with him at Mississippi State, I think made me a more complete coach and prepared me for going on to the University of Kentucky and coaching there. But Ron Polk is my mentor. He's a great human being, and he's been great for the game of baseball.
Keith, you know what's amazing is, think about it. First of all, you go to an ABCA, you meet him. Now, he knows a lot of coaches. And to be picked by him as one of one of his coaches is an incredible honor, especially that early, in your career. But then it speaks to what I just mentioned about the ABCA, and I know you published a magazine for them, and it's outstanding magazine. That's why another reason why people need to be a member of the ABCA and go to the convention, because that networking face to face. I mean, that's how you want to get in the game of baseball and you have a passion. That's how you meet somebody. That's how you impress them. I mean, that's the way to do it, isn't it?
That it is. And, if you're in Europe or Asia or Latin America, any of the Latin American countries, find a way to get to the ABCA convention where you can do exactly what you're talking about, meet coaches, and also learn a lot of baseball. There's great speakers there. And I think it would be a trip of a lifetime. If I was in a European country or, one of the Caribbean countries, or I think it would be just awesome to be around all those coaches. And another great benefit of being a member of the ABCA is that you can get all the videotapes of their vast library of speakers throughout the years, whether it's Ron Polk or Skip Bertman or anybody. I mean, there's been so many great speakers there. So that's a great benefit. So and recently, we've sort of teamed up with the European Baseball Coaches Association, and so they're going to be benefiting from all those things that the ABCA offers, such as the videos and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's a great organization. And if it hadn't been for meeting Ron Polk, I would have never gotten involved in that organization. And then I met other people like Mark Johnson, that coached at Texas A&M, and Jerry Kendall, who was the coach at Arizona at one time. Tremendous man. So I met these guys as a young coach, and they sort of took me under their wings and got me involved in the ABCA. And at first I thought I didn't have time. I thought, well, gosh, at Kentucky, I'm recruiting, I'm fundraising, I'm meeting with players individually. We have games and practices. But they said, hey, you don't want to miss this opportunity to get involved in the ABCA. And then, as you mentioned, I just went through the committees and finally became president of the ABCA and then chairman of the board. And it's been a tremendous honor for a small town Kentucky boy to be around so many great coaches and learn so much and to be a part of that.
Yeah, Keith, you mentioned high school baseball. How many years did you coach high school baseball?
I coached 2 years at Lake Wales High School. It was tremendous. I loved coaching at the high school level. I had a fun career at Kentucky, and it's fun coaching college baseball too, but it's so different. In my opinion, the high school level is, if you're a relationship guy like I am, it's so neat to be able to get connected with those guys, because a lot of high school players, they want to hang out with the coach. They want to spend time with the coach.
Right.
Once college coaches, it's a lot harder to earn that time with your players because they're so busy with classes and weightlifting and all the things going on with college baseball. But the relationship part is just fantastic. I coached at Lake Wales High in 76 and 77, and I still stay in touch with some of my former players, and that's been a long time.
Is when you 2 years in high school, for young coaches out there, nowadays, I'm not saying everybody, but there's a lot of young people out there that want things fast. I go back a long time, and I know, coaches or young people, they don't want to hear, well, when I was young, I did this. But, there's some truth to starting at different levels. Now, every level is good. I mean, I don't just because you're a major league coach doesn't mean you're better than a high school coach or a college. It depends on the individual. But to get started, I would think, like for me, when I was at Mickey on baseball school, working with 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds, that's what really started my coaching career and understanding how to work with young players. That helped me a lot. I would think the high school level, 2 years of it. Explain what that did for you and your growth in coaching.
Well, first of all, it taught me how to be a leader. I had to grow up quickly, because when I was playing professional baseball, and this is a terrible thing to say, but it's just it's just the way it is in pro baseball. It's a business, and it was all about me.
Right.
I wanted to get to the next level. I wanted to go from rookie ball to A ball, from A ball to double A. And to do that, you have to compete and work hard. But then when you get thrust into the coaching at the high school level, now it's not about me, it's about them. And it's about helping those young men who love to play baseball become better baseball players and to come together as a team. And so I love that aspect of it, and it helped me grow. And you mentioned, we're working with those, 8, 9, 10 year olds. Uh, I was scared to death to get in front of people when I first got out of professional
Yes,
baseball. I mean, I could pitch in front of 10,000 and it's no big deal, but to speak in front of people, it was intimidating. And I was so nervous. But doing those camps, when I would have camps and I'm talking to all these young baseball players, and they're like me, only they're just a lot
yeah,
younger.
exactly.
They love the game, and they're excited. And so just presenting to them over and over and over again helped me to become a better coach.
Absolutely.
And it helped me to learn how to speak in front of people.
Absolutely. I was, I'm very quiet, introvert. It takes me a while to meet people. It takes me a while to speak to somebody or in front of people. I agree with you, because when we were talking about offline with Coach Birmingham, Dick Birmingham, my mentor since I was 15 years old. And at 21, I used to travel with Dick and do the different conventions, like for youth coaches, different coaching clinics. And I'd be his demonstrator, So, gone a year and a half. And all of a sudden, I was about 20 years old, and we're in front of about 100 coaches in one of the cities. And Coach Birmingham gets done talking about something. He says, we're going to take a 5-minute break, and Pete's going to come back to you and talk to you about hitting. And, I'm like, whoa, nobody told me this, and Dick
Yeah.
had a plan. Dick was sharp. You know how smart he was. His plan was,
Oh, yeah.
he wasn't going to let me prepare for some reason, because he thought if I prepared, I'd be too nervous he just wanted me to go and just do it for the first time. Later taught me how to prepare a little bit, but that he just threw me in there, and that's where it all started for me.
It's like, if you don't know how to swim, he just throws you in the water and you learn how to
Right. He
swim,
just
right?
kept a lifeline there for a little bit. If I messed something up, he'd correct it. Well, listen, like I said at the beginning of the show, stay in the game without losing your purpose. My big question on that right now is, how did you come up with the name, and why that particular topic? Because I think it's an incredible topic.
Well, the name actually came late in my writing of the book. Perhaps right at the very end, because I had all these ideas in my mind, and when I would find time and everything, I would sit down in my chair and just start writing, and it didn't take me long to realize I wanted to help coaches with the struggles they have in coaching. And at every level, coaches have different challenges. And so it's not all fun and games. It's almost like being a player. When you're a player, you go into slumps. Or when if you're a pitcher, you may walk 3 or 4 guys in a row and get taken out of the game. Well, that's a challenge you have to overcome. Well, coaches have challenges too. They have the players that have different personalities. Not all the time, but sometimes in youth baseball, you have parents who want to tell you how to coach.
Most of the time.
So that happens, and as I go around the country speaking and talking baseball with people, I kept hearing a lot of the same problems. And then finally, I was one of my former players has a beautiful place in the Rockies in Colorado. And he invited my wife and I to come out and stay with him. And he's a very successful businessman, but he coaches the high school team just because he loves baseball. And so I was with him one day, and he got a call from a parent, and the parent said this. He said, Coach, I I'm spending a lot of money for my son to get hitting lessons. I'm spending a lot of money for my son to get pitching lessons, and he's not even in the lineup. He's a junior. How do you expect him to get a college scholarship if he's not in the lineup on your high school
Yeah.
team? Well, the truth of the matter is, after I learned about this young player, is that there was a freshman that was out hitting him, and there was another freshman that was out pitching him. So they were getting more innings, they were getting more at bats. And a lot of times it's not the money you spend to get lessons, it's the competitiveness that a player has, or maybe he's born with certain skills that they just deserve the playing time. So I thought, well, that's one problem. And then the next week I was with a college coach, and he was saying, this is the worst summer of my life.
Wow.
And I said, "Wait, what are you talking about? You're in a great situation." He said, all I'm doing is fundraising for name, image, and likeness, NIL. And then, I had 4 players transfer out of my program, and now I've got to replace those guys through the transfer portal. And when he said that, I thought, man, coaching is so much more complicated than it was when I coached. And that's another problem. And so as I travel around the country, I just kept hearing about all these different challenges. And I was hearing coaches say things like this, Pete. They would say things like, I don't know how much longer I can do this.
Wow.
And so I thought, these guys need encouragement. And I heard a pastor say this one time. He said, how do you know if someone needs encouragement? And I said, I really don't know. And he said, if they're breathing. and and that's the way it is. We all need encouragement. And I wanted to write a book that would help coaches as they meet these challenges, to encourage them to keep on keeping on. But don't give in, because you're in a position of great influence. When you're a coach, whether you're coaching over in Japan, or whether you're coaching in Florida or New York or California, you have influence over those young men you're coaching. And that is a precious thing to have. And so don't let the challenges get in the way of the why you are coaching.
That's interesting, because, when I was looking at the topic and some of the things you had written down, I'm thinking, normally when you have passion for something, that passion is going to keep you going, right? You really love what you're doing. You hear from coaches all the time. I've got coaches, had a coach on yesterday podcast, 50 years in the game, still going strong. I've got friends, as a lot of people that been in the game a long time, still going. I mean, they're 82 years old, still on the field, still coaching, still doing stuff. But there's always that but behind. We don't know what happens behind the scenes. And when I was younger, I always grew up with older coaches. I was fortunate in that area, and this is what I want to ask you. One of the things that I saw, and this is just one of them, so I want you to let me know what you think are other things that influence coaches off the field that, they're not, where they lose their encouragement, let's say, and they don't want to continue. I saw high school coaches with a high divorce rate,
Yes.
And I'm sure that it could be college also, but there's other things that influence that too, right? It's just not just the stuff at home. What else that coaches struggle with?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they struggle with, like I said, parent issues, because, a lot of parents want their kid to hit third in the lineup and play shortstop and be the number 1 pitcher.
Yeah.
and so, I had 2 sons who played baseball. And even though I was a college coach, when I would go watch them play, Pete, 80%, maybe even 90% of my focus, it was on my sons. I wanted I wanted them to do well. I wanted them to have fun. I wanted them to have a good experience. And so it helped me become a better coach, because I realized that when I'm coaching the college team in Kentucky, when the parents come, they're mainly focusing on their player, on their son as a player. And so when they would talk to me about playing time, I would explain that to them. Look, when you watch the game, you focus on your son. You don't see what the other kid's doing. He may be performing better at this time, and there may be some things your son needs to work at so that he can be in that position. But But all of those things over time, the parent problems, maybe the attitude problems of players or whatever challenges a coach might have, they can sap you of that passion you have for the game if you let it. And so what I challenge coaches to do is to, and I talk about this extensively in Coaching with Purpose, the book, is that you need to remember the why. I vividly remember when I fell in love with baseball. A lot of people remember when they fell in love with their wife. I also remember when I fell in love with baseball. It's when I was 5 years old and I walked down this little gravel road where I lived in rural Kentucky, and I saw these two older boys playing catch, and just hearing that baseball pop in that leather mitt, it was beautiful. And to see that ball travel and to hear it kind of zip by as I was watching them play catch, I mean, it was a great thing. So I go home that night and talked my dad into buying me a glove. And so my brother and I got gloves and a baseball, and we started playing. So you have to remember the why you're coaching, and the why should be because I want to influence my players in a positive way. I want them to leave my program to potentially be better husbands, better fathers, better citizens in their community, not just to leave my program being a better baseball player. So we have this opportunity as coaches to develop the entire person. We're not taking the place of the parents. We're just enhancing that. And so we want to teach them character. We want to teach them discipline. We want to teach them how to be a great teammate. So we want to teach them all of these things so that when they go into what we call as adults the real world, they're ready to take on the responsibilities of a family and to thrive in their community. And so this book is about it's got a lot of baseball stuff in it, but it's also about utilizing the opportunity you have as a coach to develop the full person in the athlete that you're coaching.
And I would believe that, as you're talking, I'm listening, I'm going, this is a book in baseball. I always say we're doing a great job at the high school level, at the college level, professional, also at some youth levels, but not all youth levels, because a lot of youth levels are volunteers or parents. This has got to be a great book for parents that are coaching. I mean, to me, that's where it starts, because, it's kind of like the instincts of the game. We keep, I hear, well, players nowadays don't have the instincts they used to have. Well, because at the young levels, we're not letting them do the things on their own a little bit. Let them play the game on their own. So I believe it all starts there. And that's, then they can grow much better because they've got all this time to grow and learn all this stuff. But if they get to college right away, then all of a sudden, you're trying to teach them all this, and they've already gone through some bad times. It's a little tougher. I think a book needs to be in those hands. Great.
Yeah, I agree. And I appreciate you saying that. You know,
It's a parenting book.
if we're not careful, a lot of times at the youth level, this is what I see, Pete. I see parents and some of the coaches not allowing kids to fail. You have baseball is a game that if you can't handle failure, you're going to be an emotional wreck,
Absolutely.
because it is a tough game. It's a tough game physically and mentally. So at the youth level, we need to teach kids how to, hey, yeah, you made a mistake, you made an error, or you struck out 3 times, but hey, we're going to play again next Thursday. We're going to play again next Friday, and you're going to get another chance, and you're going to do better because you're going to work on the game. We're going to find out what you did wrong, and then we're going to try to improve that so you can compete better. And I firmly believe that the most important thing a coach, if you're a parent coach or if you're a high school coach or a college coach or even a big league coach or manager, the most important thing you can do is to believe in that athlete that's playing for you. I can count right now. I can tell you 5 or 6 coaches that I know believed in me, and because they believed in me, it helped me to believe in myself. And I can also tell you some coaches that I played for that really didn't believe in me, and I would leave practice with my chin down a little bit, because not because they were tough, but it's because they didn't believe in me. I love playing for tough coaches. I wanted that. I wanted people to be honest with me. But you can be a demanding coach and at the same time believe in your player. That's incredibly important, because, as you know, Peter, I mean, confidence is so much a part of the game of baseball. If you believe in yourself, I'll give you an example, and you've seen this a million times. You've been around the game a while. A player gets up and there's runners on second and third in the bottom of the last inning with 2 outs. If the hitter gets a base hit and your team is 1 run down, if the player gets a base hit, you win the game. So if that player that's hitting believes in himself, his chances of getting a hit are greater. If the guy coaching third base believes in him, those chances get just a little bit greater. If the guy on deck believes in him, it goes up even more. And if the dugout, if his home team dugout believes in him, they're going to go up more.
Sure.
I don't understand those dynamics, but I've seen it a million times.
Yeah.
When people believe, it's a greater chance of it happening, and so I think that is the most important thing a coach can do, is to believe in a player. And also, I think it's the most neglected thing that coaches do. We're so caught up into this hitting technique or long toss technique, and those are all great. We got to learn how to play the game, but we spend so little time on really getting to know the player and coaching the player instead of the game, and believing in the player. Another emphasis I have in this book, Coaching with Purpose, is we don't coach baseball. We coach baseball players. And so if you can, as a coach, be a great question asker, ask questions all the time, get to know your player as an athlete, as a person. And to me, the more questions a coach can ask a player, the more he gets to know him, and the better coach he will be for that particular player. And then, just because you're spending time with that player, now that player says, hey, coach believes in me, so obviously I can do this. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And why? Because, as I brought up the youth coach is the parent. And I want to, put yourself in their position, because we've dealt with volunteer coaches our lives. You've held camps, you work with coaches. Here's a parent, works all day, sometimes could have a job they don't like. Now they got to go to a practice. They got, a few bats, they got baseballs, they've got 1 batting tee, they got 12 or 15, 10-year-olds or 11-year-olds. They've got to run a practice. Talk about one of the hardest things to do, and that's why their emphasis should be more on what you're talking about. Yes, we still want to do the skills, but the more positive you are with them, and Tom House always said that baseball's a game coached by negative people with negative comments a lot, because we tend to go to the negative, right? And when you don't know what to say. But if, like you said, when you reach that player, that 10-year-old, all it takes is a little smile and he's all excited, right?
Oh, yeah.
And if our parents, and it's not that our parents don't understand it, because it's going to help their own parenting also at the same time. But if we gave them more information like this, the game would grow more, because it would keep kids in the game longer. Kids quit simply, most of the time they quit because they don't like the coach at the youth levels. Then they quit because practice isn't fun. Okay, so if we can just, that's why. Who needs to get this book also is the volunteers. And one way to do that, in my opinion, folks, if you're listening, we got friends in Little League and Pony Baseball that listen to the show. Those are big organizations, not counting USA Baseball, obviously, another one. That's how you grow the game. So by educating coaches, but especially in this particular topic.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I believe that, at my age and with all the coaching experience I have, and you've been around the game a lot too, and you've traveled all over the world around the game, and it's this is easier said than done.
Absolutely.
But if I'm a volunteer coach and I'm a dad that's working in that job that you're talking about, and I've taken on the responsibility of coaching the team, the number one thing that dad should do, in my opinion, is to recruit good volunteers to help him.
Yep.
Because there's nothing worse than having 15 players standing around while one kid hits. You know, all those kids just standing around. If you have 3 or 4 solid volunteers, then you can have different stations going on around the field where kids are active and they're having fun and they're competing. And to me, one of the most neglected things, and it's just because they're not professional coaches. They're, you know, they may be a salesman, or they may work in a factory, or they may even be a farmer or whatever. Those coaches that are coaching the team, they're volunteer coaches themselves, and they haven't been to 100 clinics like you and I have. Don't know. And so, first of all, get organized with your practice plan and get great volunteers and keep the kids active and learning during practice. You can get a lot done in an hour and a half. You know, keep the practice relatively short, have a lot of stations, keep the kids moving. And now the kids are going to fall in love with baseball. If they're just standing around, they're going to move on to soccer or football or basketball or a sport that moves all the time. And so we got to keep them active in practice. And then, you know, baseball loses a lot of players at around 12, 13, 14 years old, a lot. And so I think by keeping them active and interested and learning and growing, now they're going to continue to love the game, and we're going to have more and more players play. And so that, you know, my Little League coach, I've said this in a lot of interviews and a lot of podcasts. My Little League coach was a lifelong friend of mine. Wow. He was probably 23 years old when he coached me. I thought he was an old guy. He was probably 23. And he had just gotten married. But he was a great coach. You know, he really poured into the kids he coached. And we stayed in touch until the very day he passed. He actually called me the day he died.
Wow.
And so that's the kind of influence a youth coach can have on a player. I mean, had it not been for David Webb, this man I'm talking about, I don't know if I'd ever played high school baseball, and I certainly wouldn't have played professional baseball. And I certainly wouldn't have coached college baseball. But he taught me how to compete, and he didn't give up on me, and he believed in me. And he didn't have the knowledge of you know, Joe Torre or some great baseball manager, but he really loved baseball and he cared about the kids, and he wanted to help them, and he wanted them to get better. So, man, the influence and the impact that these youth coaches can have on players, it's immense.
No doubt. And you know what? Those are some awesome points. And folks, before I forget, on Facebook and YouTube, especially Facebook, you got any questions? We got a lot of people on Facebook. Thanks for joining us. You know, any questions for Keith, type them in the comments section. I'll try to get them out. You know, and that's what we talk about a lot of times, you know, about volunteers. You know, they're so well intended. They're so, you know, they give their time up. It's a lot of hours. It's after work. So I'm putting a little pressure on Little League Pony and everybody else. Here's my pressure, folks. My pressure is they're volunteers. They don't need to be going out and buying books and videotapes and all that. Take a book like Keith's, Coaching with a Purpose, and, you know, buy it for them, or, you know, buy it at a discount, buy it in quantities. You know, there's one way, buy in quantities and give them to the coaches that are volunteer, because I think we need to give back to our volunteers. We can't keep asking for money, you know, because they say you got to buy. Well, they're already volunteering 40 hours a week, you know, at practices, or 20 hours a week, whatever it is, plus games. And then the other part is, Keith, you brought up a very important thing here. something that's changed in the game, and I'm going to get to your other topics here because I think you got some great ones. You mentioned ask questions. How important for a volunteer, for a parent, instead of telling kids what to do constantly. We all used to do that. I grew up as at the baseball school, whatever the coaches said, I did, right? I never asked a question. I was never able to ask a question that much. Later on, that started to change a little bit. But asking questions really helps. It solves all your problems in coaching with young kids because you hear that feedback from them.
That's right. That's exactly right. And I think a good coach, they're going to ask their players a lot of questions because that's how they get that dialogue going, and that's how we learn from each other. Yeah, I mean, I had an assistant coach on my staff once, and he did such a great job when we had camps because he would get the kids together and he would teach a skill, and then he would start asking the players questions about what he just taught. And it was great feedback, and all of a sudden the kids are into it, and because a lot of times, I can teach a kid a certain skill, Pete, and he doesn't pick it up. But if you teach it to him and you say it in maybe a different way, then they pick it up. Sometimes it's not the lack of knowledge we have, it's the way we present it. And that's why, repetition is the father of learning. You have to go over these skills over and over again, and finally it clicks. And it especially clicks if you have more than one person sharing that information in just slightly a different way. So I think coaches do well to ask questions.
Yeah, and the other thing I'm thinking is when you ask a question, you're holding a conversation. When you hold a conversation, I remember when I was young, man, coaches talking to me. We're actually talking. Yeah. We're actually holding a conversation. I'm not just listening to what he has to say. So you really feel good about yourself because now you're part of the process in some way.
Exactly.
And
that's correct.
How did you deal? Obviously you're in high school, but then 25 years in college baseball. How did you deal with your college players? They're able to ask questions. You had an open door. How did that kind of work with coach? Because I know that's difficult even at the college level. Some kids are on scholarships, and there's that. It's just not an easy dynamic.
Yeah, for one thing, many, not all, but many of the players that play at the college level who are on scholarship, they don't really appreciate the scholarship. The ones that don't have a scholarship want a scholarship.
I was one of those.
Especially if they're, working harder in practice and all that. They want to earn that scholarship. So I think one of the things is, you teach those players that have a scholarship, hey, this is, there's at the college level, there's only 11.7 at the NCAA Division I level. And so you should be very thankful for that scholarship because I believed in you. But if you don't go to class, if your attitude is not where it should be, if you're not giving a great effort in practice, then why shouldn't I give that scholarship to a person that doesn't have one, that's given the great effort and listening and learning and growing as a player? So I think you have to have those honest conversations with players. And, the way the whole college thing is set up, especially now with the NIL, if you don't handle the scholarship situation, the NIL situation, with a lot of tact and a lot of thought, you're going to have a lot of jealousy on the team, and you're going to have people. It's almost like the scholarship situation on steroids. You got one player that, and the word gets out, the NIL money and what they get. You're going to have one player get more than the other, and it's it can be challenging for a coach. But you want to teach the players that are not on scholarship, and maybe they're not in the lineup, you want to teach them about how to take advantage of the opportunity once they get it. That's how you earn
Mm.
playing time. That's how you maybe even earn a scholarship, is that, hey, when you're in the dugout and you're not playing and your name's called to pinch run or to pinch hit or whatever, be ready mentally. Um, and a lot of kids at the high school level and college level, they're maybe pouting a little bit because they're not in the lineup. And then all of a sudden their name's called and they're not in the competitive frame of mind to perform well. And so you want to teach your athletes to always be ready for the opportunity. There's countless stories about how players wait for their opportunity. Then they get it, that opportunity, and they succeed. And now the coach starts really noticing that player. But if you're not in the right frame of mind in the dugout when you get the opportunity, then you're probably going to fail. And now you're going to be even deeper on the bench. So I love to use the word opportunity, and that doesn't mean you're not going to
Mm-hmm.
succeed in baseball time you get an opportunity, no matter how positive you are. But if you're more positive, the chances of you succeeding are much
It's
greater.
amazing. I'm watching the playoffs. I'm seeing some guys coming off the bench, where they haven't played for a while, and all of a sudden getting the key hit, or moving the guy
Yeah,
over, doing something right in the game. That's exactly what you're talking about. And sometimes, you're hitting the line drive really hard, and somebody catches it. Also, that's going
exactly.
to happen.
Yeah,
Now listen,
right.
25 years in college baseball. You mentioned, and I think it's in your book too. You're talking about this. Um, you're going to go through tough times, a tough season. And you said, well, I had to find my purpose, through that struggle, because college baseball is a little different. You also have to win, because you could be talking about your job. So it's not just about, helping the kids out. Sure, you want to help the kids out best they can, but you also want to win in some ways, which the prior one is a factor of that, because if you're doing real well with the players, you got a better chance of winning. I understand that. But how did you deal with those? Because you're gonna have failures. You're gonna have seasons that are just terrible seasons sometimes.
That's right. And baseball is a streaky
Mm-hmm.
game. You can watch that play out in the major leagues. You can watch it play out in college and high school ball. Uh, you're going to go on winning streaks, and you're probably going to have some losing streaks. And you've heard it said by a million baseball people, but you're a baseball player is either going into a slump or he's coming out of a slump. So it's that type of game. So I think there's different times in my career that was made aware to me, and it's just a silly story, but we had a bad practice one day when I was coaching at Kentucky, and I live about 20 minutes from campus, and so on my drive home, I'm sulking. My attitude's not good. I'm thinking, hey, when I get home, I don't want to play with the kids. I don't want to talk to anybody. I just want to be by
Mm-hmm.
myself. I was just in a bad mood. And so my sons at that time were about 12 and 10. So I pull the car in the garage, and the garage door goes right into the kitchen, and our kitchen has a brick floor. And I open the door, and my 10-year-old has nothing on but his basketball shorts and a pair of socks. And he comes running towards me, and he slides on the brick floor with his socks, with his sock feet. And he was at that stage in life where he was a little bit pudgy. And when he did that, and I just walked in the door, and he said, "Look, Dad, I'm a chubby boy." And it was just a little thing, but it's like it made me
Yeah, it made your
laugh.
day.
And yeah, it made my day. And I thought at that time, what do I have to be down
Mm-hmm.
about? Absolutely nothing. So what? My guys didn't practice well today. We got another chance to practice well tomorrow. I've got a family here. When I walk in that door, they're going to love me the same, whether I win, lose, or have a good practice or a bad practice. And then about a year later, my wife, we had played in an NCAA regional. We lost this was before the super regionals. We had lost the championship game to Stanford. A young man by the name of Mike Messina beat us in that
Wow.
championship game. And so the program was going pretty well. I was disappointed in the loss. We didn't get to go to Omaha, but that summer my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer. And that put everything in perspective, Pete. It was like, man, I just need to be more thankful for the opportunities, for the opportunity to be with my wife, to coach players. And so that's when I started to develop this attitude of gratitude. What I learned is the more thankful I am, the happier I am. If I get up every day and I'm thankful for the opportunities that I have, I'm thankful for my family. That doesn't mean everything's going perfect, but it just means you're thankful for the things you have. It's a whole different day that's before me. If I wake up and I don't have that attitude of gratitude, now the day's probably going to suck a little bit, And so I think we need to start our day off with gratitude. And if we can do that, it's going to be a much better day for us. And so I just, when I start getting in a bad mood, or if things discourage me, I just, to be honest with you, I just thank God for the way He's blessed me in my life. And when I do that, my whole attitude and my whole state of mind changes to the better.
And I got to believe that's a struggle for everybody, right? And not just in sports.
Yes.
I know, being Italian, sometimes I tend to be pretty negative. We're more negative than positive a lot of times. And you wake up and you're right. But I think something that's helped you a lot is the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And I know you're big in that. I've gone to the ABC and obviously attended the meetings there, but also the online coaching ones that they have. I know there's other groups that have online coaching, religious discussions. That seems to help coaches a great deal. I would think your advice is to really try to get in one of those groups and be part of it.
No doubt, because, when you surround yourself with other people that they struggle also, but they also understand that when we are grateful and we try to do things and remember the why we coach and all those things, it's gonna lift your spirits and it's gonna make you better. I'm in a great group on Monday mornings, and it's a baseball specific group. It's coaches and professional scouts, and we have some great people like Clint Hurdle, and
that's the one I listen to, because they send the updated one in case you missed it. I listen to that every because a lot of times I can't make it on Monday morning.
Right. Yeah, it comes on live on Monday mornings, and if you're a baseball person and you want to get on that, we'd love to have you. And Pete, I can send you the link, and maybe you can put it on.
Yeah, I'd love to get it out.
Yeah, and so
excuse me, Keith. I asked that because it seems to be what you were talking about here is something that needs to be done daily, right? Because even I forget, and then I get negative after 3 days because I didn't remind myself, that look how lucky we are. I mean, lucky to be alive, lucky not to be sick, lucky to have a great wife that supports you. I forget all that stuff, right? And then I get into what's going wrong. Why didn't I get this? Why did somebody else get that? And we all go through that. I mean, we're all human. We all go through that mentally.
That's right. That's exactly right. And you remember when you were little and you watched the cartoons, and I can't remember which one, but there was an angel on one shoulder and a devil on the other. We have a tendency to listen to the bad guy, the enemy.
Always.
And we listen to him instead of listening to the good thoughts. And
Absolutely.
so I think, my spiritual life has been such a blessing to me, because when you have faith, and it helps you to become more thankful, because you more easily recognize how good God has really been to you.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, every day I try to start my day with a quiet time. I read scripture, I pray, I send out a short devotional message to about 600 coaches every morning. It's just a short, quick text. And if you're a coach out there and you want to be a part of that, Pete knows how to get in touch
Mm-hmm.
with me. I'd love to get you on the list. And if I start my day off like that, it makes the whole day better. If I don't start my day off like that, then that enemy starts creeping in. He wants to rob us of our joy. He wants to take our joy away from us. Whereas I think God wants us to be men and women of joy. He wants us to express that joy, and not in a phony way or a fake way, but if we start
Mm-hmm.
our day off right, it's going to naturally come. So I would encourage people to start off their day with prayer and meditation, and reading scripture. It's such an encouragement. And then, you feel like you're walking through the day with God as a part of your life instead of alone. And so that's been good for me, and I think it's helped other people as well. So my book talks about that too. I'm certainly, I don't skirt away from the faith issue, because it's been such a big part of my life.
The other area, I've been around a lot of coaches, that head coaches, that after a loss, like you said, they took it really bad, and nobody wants to lose. I get that. I remember listening to Joe Madden saying, that after a loss with the Cubs, he'd give them a half hour, everything's quiet, just relax, think about it. After that, turn on the lights, the music, do whatever you want, because that's over with.
Right.
That was his way to kind of deal with the players. Seem to really enjoy that part of it, because I've been around coaches, very good coaches. I mean, brilliant men who after the loss, I remember I'm the only one that went to dinner with them.
Yeah,
Everybody else, nobody else. He wouldn't talk to anybody else, right? I mean,
exactly.
no players, and then on the bus, sometimes it had to be quiet the whole trip. But we had a 6-hour bus ride. I mean, that wasn't doing anybody any good.
I used to be one of those guys. I
Right?
used to be like that. Hey, if
When did
I'm
you
not
make
happy,
the
nobody's
change?
going to be happy.
When did you make that change, and how did you make that change? Because of your background in religion, or
I think that was a huge part of it. Plus, I think, when my wife was battling breast cancer,
uh,
it changed my outlook. It it
yeah,
it it made me realize that first first of all, coaching baseball it's not brain surgery.
right,
It's supposed to, first of all, it's supposed to be fun for the players. It's a game. It's supposed to be
right,
fun. Now, we want to be excellent, and we're going to demand excellence. But it's like you said a minute ago, Pete, when the game is over, it's over. And some coaches have a 24-hour rule.
mm-hmm.
And after 24 hours, you move on, or like you were talking about Joe. He gave him 30 minutes to process it,
Right,
and then it's over. And I think that's healthy. I think that's
mm-hmm.
very healthy. You don't need to be carrying around losing. I mean, this is probably going to offend some people, and I'm sorry if it does. But if you carry around a loss for more than 24 hours, then it makes you a loser,
Mm, mm.
because you're thinking about the loss more than you're thinking about anything else. You need to
Sure.
flush that. You need to flush that and get it behind you. You compete as hard as you can, and sure, when you lose, it hurts, but you need to, as soon as you can, process that, make notes about how you can make things better the next day, and then move on and be a winner. Um, so I really, really think, another thing I stopped doing, I used to talk to my team after a loss. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I would talk for 10 minutes. Sometimes I'd talk for 20 minutes. Sometimes I'd talk for 30 minutes. Well, you know what? Nobody wants to be talked to. After you play a long game, you come out early for batting practice and all
Yeah,
that, and then you play a 3 or 4 hour game, and then you have to listen to the coach after you lose. That's not any fun.
yeah.
So I started this thing No coach is going to talk to the team after the game unless it's a rare occasion where you have to address something. So we go to the locker room, and like you talked about, Joe, you process that. And then the next day you improve it in practice. Because first of all, after a game like that, they're hungry. They want to get out of there. They want to see their girlfriends, or they just want to relax. And then they're much more receptive to going over game mistakes the following day than they are after a
Great
game.
point.
That, to me, that's the worst time to go over game mistakes. But make those notes, when you get home, jot down some notes. Hey, we need to work on base running because we made a couple of serious base running mistakes, or we need to work on hitting the cutoff man. Whatever mistakes your
Sure.
team made, write those down and then put them in practice the next day and address it then. They're going to be much more, they're going to embrace it much more the next day.
Yeah, I remember.
I promise you guys aren't going to listen to you after the game.
I agree.
They're not going to be listening.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, again, there's some negative things that happen. They surely don't want to hear the negatives again.
That's right.
It's a lot easier to hear it the next day. I remember Gordy Gillespie saying too, and you just mentioned the practice aspects, that, practice was his time. That's when he made the corrections. That's when he made, set up the things they need to work on. And then game time needs to be, the players' time. How did you balance during the game? And I know at the college level, you have more time to prepare. You all have more coaches. But, a lot of times younger coaches during the game, they want to control everything. And It's like, you can't control. I mean, if you have to control everything, then you haven't done a very good job in practice either, I would assume. How did you balance, of course, the strategy, you handled that with signs and all that, but how did you balance the talking and the not talking part of the game aspect?
Yeah. To be honest with you, I think most coaches talk way too much during the game. First of all, if you're a third base coach, I mean, hitting, if you think about it, hitting is perhaps the most difficult thing to do in all sports. We've heard that many times. So now you've got a coach talking to you while you're trying to concentrate on the next pitch. And it's more of a distraction. So here's, the head guy in baseball at the major league level is called a manager for a reason. Manages the game. So if you watch the big league managers, the great ones, they're not talking a lot during the game. Now they're observing and they're making suggestions, and they're talking to their bench coach, and they're communicating, but they're not constantly jabbering at a player and all that. That is for practice. So you manage the game and you coach in practice. That's a simple way to put it. And as I matured as a coach, I think that's what I did. I hear, to me, a lot of coaches, and it's worse than basketball and than probably any other sport, but they talk so much. I mean, who's going to listen to all that? And
right.
It's almost like they're trying to prove to the people in attendance and the people who are watching on television, they're trying to prove that they're coaching.
Yes.
It's like, look at me, I'm coaching.
Yes.
And I'm angry. That makes me a better coach. No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It just makes you angry.
Yeah. And I see this, and I think I've done this too. I've seen it where a lot of times, I don't know, maybe a player, they did a cutoff and they did something wrong. They come in and you kind of meet them on the field, talking to them a little bit. And then you're doing a good job talking, you're explaining. Maybe you're asking them a question, why did you do that? Just so we can learn. If they understand, you discuss. But that could also be done in the dugout too.
No doubt. You don't have to go all the way out to the baseline to talk to the player.
Exactly.
All you're doing is drawing more attention to a negative situation.
Yeah.
And that's not what you want. So like you said, the dugout is where you do that. And it's a learning situation. The dugout should be like a classroom.
Yeah. And it sounds like the two aspects I'm listening to, I mean, there's a lot obviously to this, but the asking the question and the being positive. If you don't know a lot about the game, but you can do those two things well, that can overcome a lot of things that you may not know about skills or management. I mean, it could really help. Again, the coaches that don't have the experience because they don't do it all the time, those two things can be so helpful. I'm listening as I listen to you. Those are tremendous.
Yeah, no doubt, Pete. And and coaches, no matter what level you're coaching, whether it's at the youth level, high school, college, there's so much information out there for you to learn. I mean, even YouTube videos. When I have to work on my lawnmower, I go to YouTube. I mean,
Yeah,
that's how I
I'm there
learn
all the time. I agree.
if I have to put something together, I go to YouTube.
Yeah,
But there's so many good coaches that have so much good information. I think of guys like Trent Mongero and different people around the country that are just excellent instructors, and they have quality stuff. That you can go to YouTube or you can go to their websites, and there's no excuse for coaches not being able to learn how to be better coaches. And I'm still learning today. I mean, at my advanced age, I go to the ABC, and I listen to the speech, and I think, man, I wished I'd have done that when I coached. There's some really bright young coaches that are doing a great
absolutely.
job. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm with you because I think there is a lot of young coaches that are really coming up doing some great things. And one of the things they do is they challenge the status quo more than anything.
That's right. Yeah.
Which is a good thing. Why not? You may be wrong, but you also could be right if you're challenging. If you're not asking questions, why are we doing it this way? Is there a better way? Then we're never going to learn. Hey, listen, this has been awesome. I've kept you on for a long time here, and rightfully so, because I think this is a great book, Coaching with Purpose. Keith, last thing, anything I know the book's got a lot of details. We talked about some of the highlights. Did we miss a really key highlight of the book and why people should, purchase it?
I think we definitely hit on some of the highlights, but the main point I want to make to any coach that is listening or watching is that remember that you don't really coach baseball. You coach baseball players.
That's the key.
Yeah, you put that player and that I think any good leader needs to possess knowledge and empathy. We were all a player at one time, and we made mistakes at one time. We want to coach in a way that we would have. Let me put it this way: I want to be the kind of coach that I would have wanted to play for. If we could look at it that way, we're going to have more empathy towards the players. We're going to be better teachers, and we're going to be better listeners.
Man, I'll tell you what. Because every time you're talking, something else comes up. We can be going for 3 hours here. I got to ask this one because I just thought about it. I'm thinking I got to ask you this. It's how many times in your career can you remember you telling your players, "Hey guys, it's on me," or "I made a mistake"? Because I think leaders, as I listen to leadership books, or read leadership books, or listen to the top leaders in the world, you hear a lot of times one of the things they say, which you don't hear them say it as much on television, but maybe they do it internally. They'll admit their mistakes, but a lot of times we don't want to do that. How many times did you do that in your career?
I did let me put it this way: the older I got, the more I did it.
Yeah,
because when I was a young coach, I was too proud because I was afraid that the players may see it as a weakness.
Yes, afraid.
But players do not see it as a weakness.
Right, I agree.
They see it as something real. It makes you more of a leader.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did it quite often, and it was hard. It was hard to do.
Yeah, sure. And it's interesting because you said as you got older, I mean, because with age comes some wisdom too.
Yeah.
And you start to realize that's the right thing to do. Makes sense, and then after a while, once you've done it, I mean, you're not overdoing it just to do it. You're doing it at the right times. But once you've done it, it's a little easier now to admit your failures.
That's right. You need to be like that player. You need to believe in yourself and be confident enough to be able to admit your mistakes. And it doesn't mean the player's going to lose respect for you. They're probably going to gain respect for you if you do that, because they know it anyway. They know when you they know when you make a mistake. But Pete, I'd like to leave on this note.
Sure.
And I recently heard this, and it really resonated with me. I think coaches need to use the 3 L's. They need to learn, love, and lead. So be a lifelong learner in the game, because, like I said earlier, I'm pretty advanced in age, and I'm still learning, and I love to learn. And I think the good coaches are never satisfied. They want more knowledge, more wisdom as their careers move on. And then love your players. There's some of the best friends I have right now are my former players. And there are coaches that probably had a lot more knowledge than me. There are coaches that had more wins than me, but they didn't love their players more than I did. And that is a tremendous thing. When you build those lifelong relationships, it makes coaching a very special thing to do, whether you're a youth league coach or whether you're a college coach. And that's you hear it talked about a lot, but I don't see it exercised a lot. Build those relationships and help your team to build the relationship with each other. Your teammates for life. Like I've got a former player that's, he's been given just a few weeks to live. And I've seen his teammates, man. We've got this text thing going, his text chain, and his teammates are just rallying behind him and giving updates and calling him and letting him know, hey, we're with you, buddy. Hang in there.
Yeah.
We're praying for you. We're with you. And to see those teammates do that after 30 years.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So when you go through those times of competition together, those battles, I mean, it builds that bond, and that should carry on, and we should encourage that type of team culture.
Absolutely. That's awesome. And that story and the one about the youth coach, that passed away and you were around and made the phone call. I mean, that tells it all right there. Keith, all right, the book, Coaching with Purpose. How do we get it? What's the best way to get it?
Yeah, you can get it through Amazon, or you can go to my website, and my website is CoachKeithMadison.com.
All right.
And then just go to Coaching with Purpose, and within the website, and you'll have 3 different ways to order, whichever one you want to order, through Amazon or through Zulon, my publisher, or directly through me.
All right. We'll put that on the show notes, folks. We'll also send it out via email, website. We'll do a lot of things, and I'm going to put a little pressure. I like putting pressure on the national organizations. So I'll put a little pressure on them. They're friends of ours, so they're used to getting my emails. Keith, man, this has been awesome. There may have to be on this type of topic. I think there's going to have to be tape number 2 on this.
I would love it. I would always enjoy talking baseball with you, Pete.
All right, man. Thanks so much. God bless you, and we'll see you next time, huh?
Okay. God bless you.
All right, folks. Thanks for joining us. Keith Madison. Get the book, Coaching with Purpose, an outstanding book. Don't forget, we will have a show next week. Check us out on Baseball Outside the Box. I'm your host, Pete Caliendo. We're over 100 countries. I want to thank everybody around the world. Wish you the best. Remember, get educated. Stay safe. Stay healthy. God bless you. And we'll see you all on the next show. Adios, everybody.